Welcome to this lecture on soil monitoring. After this lecture, you will be able to name the features of soil monitoring as compared to air and water monitoring, list the types of impacts on soil, and describe the objectives of soil monitoring and its procedure. Human activities that don't take into account environmental issues result in soil contamination. As a result of mining coal, production of oil and other fossil fuels, the soil is contaminated by wastes, heavy metals, the most toxic of which are lead, mercury, arsenic, cadmium and chrome. Soils are also polluted by industrial waste released into the atmosphere. Chemicals entering the soil with acid rain cause changes in its chemical composition, which leads to a decrease in soil fertility. Plants begin to poorly develop or die. A dangerous anthropogenic factor affecting the soil is its contamination with radioactive substances that precipitate as dust from the atmosphere. These soil contaminants may also spread with meltwater and groundwater. Soil has the ability to self-recovery, but unlike air and water, this process is very slow and the ability to recover is not infinite. And each type of soil has its own self-recovery limit. With constant contamination, soil loses its ability to self-recovery. Harmful chemicals, including heavy metals, get into harvest of agricultural plants and underground sources of drinking water, which causes diseases of humans and animals. Land monitoring is a system of observation of the land condition for timely identification, assessment and forecast of changes taking place, as well as for prevention and elimination of any negative consequences. In contrast to the assessment of air and water pollution, assessment of the soil condition is a more complex task for the following reasons. First reason, soil is a multi-phase system, chemical interaction in which occur with the participation of solid phases, soil solution, soil air, plant roots, living organisms, and it is constantly influenced by physical soil processes. Second reason, hazardous polluting chemicals elements are also components of rocks and soils. They come to the soil from natural and anthropogenic sources. But in case of ecological monitoring, usually it is necessary to assess the impact only of anthropogenic component. And the range of values of chemical substances content in soil is so wide that it is difficult to establish a level of initial background content in them. Third reason, soil pollution with various chemical substances of anthropogenic origin is almost constant. There are the following main types of soil disturbances: total destruction of the soil, removal of the soil layer, overlapping the soil surface with different materials, waste, roads and buildings, soil erosion, the destruction of soil and the removal of soil components by water and wind, mechanical disturbances, which include compaction, overweighting or drying, formation of dense crusts, pollution of soils by salts, acids, oil and petroleum products, and heavy metals. It is necessary to organize stationary observations at specially selected sites in combination with the use of remote research methods to solve these problems. Typical landscapes exposed to intensive anthropogenic impact are selected as observation objects. At the same time, background areas are studied. Regular observation of chemical, physical and biological indicators characterizing the state of the soil are carried out at stationary observation points using field methods and analysis of selected samples. An important object of research is the soil around power plants and other energy facilities. The main sampling is conducted once a year in spring after snow melting in 64 points located evenly in 8 directions within a radius of several tens of kilometers from the source of pollution. Moreover, additional sampling is carried out once a year in autumn at 16 points in 4 directions. Soil samples are analyzed for heavy metals, benzopyrene and other substances. In the winter, preparation for monitoring is carried out, which includes study of information on existing sources of soil pollution in the given area, location, amount of emissions, amount of solid waste, methods of their utilization, mapping of anthropogenic impacts on the investigated territory, sources of anthropogenic impact on the soil and zones of their probable impact are put on the map. Establishment of the monitoring period, selection of key sites, the soil samples will be taken. Also important object of soil monitoring is the atmospheric precipitation of the winter period, because the substances contained in snow in spring enter the soil and significantly affect the ecological condition of the soil cover, pollute groundwater. Therefore, snow samples are annually collected. The result of the monitoring are large-scale maps of soil conditions. They provide data for assessment and forecast of soil changes under human influence. So, in this lecture, you have learned about features of soil monitoring, types of impacts on soil, objectives of soil monitoring and its procedure.